Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're not just talking about another bank failure. We're going to dissect the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank by zooming in on one critical and honestly often misunderstood part of its balance sheet. We're talking about a decision that basically turned a regional bank into a high-stakes casino.
You know, this quote right here, it just nails it. It gets right to the heart of the problem. A bank, well, it's supposed to be safe, right? Boring, even. A hedge fund, on the other hand, is built for risk. So what happens when a bank starts acting like one? Well, that's the key to this entire story.
To really get our heads around how a bank this massive could just, poof, vaporize in less than 2 days, we have to go back to the very unique, kind of strange economic conditions of the pandemic.
Okay, so our story starts back in 2020 with a problem that, let's be real, most of us would love to have. Banks were suddenly drowning in cash.
Just look at this chart. You can see this huge split, can't you? Thanks to things like stimulus checks and people saving money, deposit growth, that's that huge orange bar, it shot through the roof. But loan growth? Totally flat. With the economy basically in lockdown, banks had tons of cash coming in the door, but almost nobody was asking to borrow it.
So that was the multi-trillion-dollar question for the entire banking industry. A bank can't just let cash sit around, right? It has to earn a return. So they did the next best thing. They went out and bought investment securities. We're talking treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities. You know, stuff that's considered super safe. Or so they thought.
Now, buying safe government bonds isn't unusual for a bank. The problem wasn't what SVB bought, it was how they accounted for it. And this is where a simple, kind of boring accounting choice turned into a massive trillion-dollar bet.
So when a bank buys a bond, it has to make a choice. How is it going to classify that asset on its books? Now, I know it sounds incredibly boring, but trust me, this one little decision has enormous consequences for how healthy a bank appears to the outside world. And the choice really comes down to this. On one side, you've got something called available for sale. These have to be valued at whatever their current market price is. So if those bonds lose value, the bank has to report that loss right away. It's totally transparent. But on the other side, you have held to maturity, or HTM. Here, a bank can just claim it plans to hold the bonds forever and then record them at their original price, completely ignoring any crash in their actual market value. It's like putting on a pair of financial blinders. And SVB didn't just dabble in the strategy. Oh no, they went all in. They plowed that flooded deposits into really long-term bonds, locking money away for 10 years or more. And then, get this, believing that rates would stay low forever, they actually removed their interest rate hedges in mid-2022. This was a massive, naked bet that interest rates would never, ever go up.
The scale of this was just staggering. I mean, look at this chart. By 2021, SVB wasn't just another regional bank. Its securities portfolio, that massive bet we were just talking about, was 5 to 6 times larger than its peers. It completely dwarfed its actual business of making loans. It had become a hedge fund.
And then, in March 2022, the one thing SVB's entire strategy was betting against happened. The one thing it absolutely could not handle.
To fight runaway inflation, the Federal Reserve unleashed the most aggressive rate hiking cycle in modern history. Interest rates didn't just nudge up a little bit, they absolutely rocketed upward, way faster than almost anyone predicted.
And this triggered what's known as the iron law of bonds. Think about it. It's common sense. If you're holding a bond that pays, say, 1.5%, and the Fed raises rates so new bonds are suddenly paying 4%, well, who's going to want your old low-yield bond? Nobody. Its market value just plummets. And this was a direct and devastating problem for SVB.
So, the Fed's actions created this chain reaction, causing the value of SVB's massive, unhedged bond portfolio to completely crater. But remember those accounting blinders? This is where they come in.
And this wasn't just an SVB problem, not by a long shot. Across the entire U.S. banking system, the value of these securities portfolios eroded by nearly $600 billion. That is a colossal, system-wide paper loss.
But here's the trick.
Because SVB had classified the bulk of its portfolio as held to maturity, those staggering losses were technically unrealized. They were just a footnote in their financial reports, not a flashing red light on their main balance sheet. This little accounting rule allowed a fatal vulnerability to grow in plain sight,
and yet it was completely concealed.
And this, right here, reveals the incredible risk that depositors were unknowingly taking. More than half of all the money that people had entrusted to SVB was now backed by these underwater bonds. We're talking assets worth far, far less than what the bank was claiming on its books.
So this ticking time bomb finally exploded when SVB's very unique depositors, financially savvy tech founders and venture capitalists, started connecting the dots. They realized their money was in real danger, and they started pulling it out fast.
And this triggered the fatal doom loop. It works just like this. First, depositors demand their money back. To get that cash, the bank is forced to sell assets. But the only things they can sell quickly are those bonds. And when they sell them, those massive, hidden, unrealized losses instantly become very real. Catastrophic, realized losses. This completely vaporized the bank's capital, revealing that it was in fact totally insolvent. And just like that, the accounting trick couldn't hide the reality anymore. The hedge fund bet had failed, confidence evaporated instantly, and the second largest bank failure in U.S. history was complete.
But here's the most unsettling part. SVB wasn't some kind of crazy anomaly. The same pandemic deposits, the same desperate hunt for yield, and the same accounting rules that let these losses fester in the dark, they existed across the entire system. Which leaves all of us with a really critical question. How many other ticking time bombs are still out there?